Today, I will be reading The Art of War from Sun Tzu. This book I've been pushing off wanting to read, but I've decided that I'm gonna read it. What's the worst that's gonna happen? I don't know. But without further ado, let's get into the art of war. Sun Tzu, a military general and strategist who lived in ancient China, is one of East Asia's most important historical figures. Traditional historians believe that he lived between 544 to 496 BC. Sun Tzu's birth name was Sun Wu. The name he is well known with is his honorific that means Master Sun. He is most famous for his writing The Art of War, a timeless classic and one of the most important works of Eastern literature. The Art of War is a treatise on military tactics and warfare that had been employed by the likes of Napoleon, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Joseph Stalin, and General Douglas MacArthur to plan their strategies in countless battles and conflicts. Chinese emperors and rulers have also consulted the treatise for guidance during periods of war. No other text on military science has ever been so popular and widely read as The Art of War. Multiple translations of Sun Tzu's masterpiece exist, and millions of its copies have been sold down the centuries. Divided into 13 chapters and written in points, the treatise covers all aspects of war, from the importance of positioning and military strategy to the use of spies, from the treatment of troops to the ways of courting defeat, and also touches on subjects such as diplomacy, cultivating relationships with other states, and avoiding battles in war. The teachings of this ancient text remain relevant even today, more than 25 centuries after it was written, as its instructions can be applied to any field where the competition is active and rampant. For instance, business leaders all over the world have made use of Sun Tzu's strategies to get ahead of their competitors. In fact, devoted followers of Sun Tzu have written books about how his theories can be applied to gain advantage in modern capitalist markets. The treatise is an interest not only to scholars, historians, or orientationalists, but to everyone who's interested in history and culture of Asia, and especially China. Chapter 1. Laying Plans. Sun Tzu said, "The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. Hence, it is a subject of inquiry which can on no account be neglected. The art of war, then, is governed by 5 constant factors to be taken into account in one's deliberations when seeking to determine the conditions obtaining in the field. These are the mortal law, heaven, earth, the commander, method, and discipline. The moral law causes the people to be in complete accord with their ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger. Heaven signifies night and day, cold and heat, times and season. Earth comprises distance, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. The commander, for the virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. By method and discipline are to be understood the marshalling of an army in its proper subdivisions, the graduations of rank among the officers, the maintenance of roads by which supplies may reach the army, and the control of military expenditure. These 5 heads should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious. He who knows them not will fail. Therefore, in your deliberations, when seeking to determine the military conditions, let them be made the bias of comparison. In this wise, which of the 2 sovereigns is imbued with the moral law? Which of the 2 generals has most ability, with whom lie the advantage deprived from heaven and earth. On which side is discipline most rigorously enforced? Which army? Which army is stronger? On which side are officers and men more highly trained? In which army is there a greater consistency both in reward and punishment? By means of these 7 considerations, I can forecast victory or defeat. The general that hearkens to my counsel and acts upon it will conquer. Let such a one be retained in command. The general that hearkens not to my counsel, nor acts upon it, will suffer defeat. Let such one be dismissed. While heading the profit of my counsel, avail yourself also of helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules, according as circumstances are favorable. One should modify one's plans. All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make them believe we are near. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, and crush him. If he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is superior in strength, evade him. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. These military devices, leading to victory, must not be divulged beforehand. Now the general who wins battle makes many calculations in his temple eyrie. The battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus do many calculations lead to victory, and few calculations to defeat. How much more no calculation at all. It is all by attention to this point that I can foresee who is most likely to win or lose. Chapter 2. Waging War. Sun Tzu said, in the operations of war, where there are in the field of 1,000 swift chariots, as many heavy chariots, and 100,000 mail-clad soldiers, with provisions enough to carry them 1,000 li, the expenditure at home and at the front, including entertainment of guests, such small items as glue and paint, and some spent on chariots and army, when reached the total of 1,000 ounces of silver per day. Such is the cost of raising an army of 100,000 men. 1 li is equal to half a kilometer. When you engage in actual fighting, if victory is long in coming, the men's weapons will grow dull, and their ardor will be dampened. If you lay siege to a town, you will exhaust your strength. Again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. Now, when your weapons are dulled, your ardor dampened, your strength exhausted, and your treasure spent, other chieftains will spring up to take action of your extremity. Then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensue. Thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. It is only one who seeks thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Bringing war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus the army will have food for enough its needs. Poverty of the state encounter causes an army to be maintained by contributions from a distance. Contributing to maintain an army at a distance causes the people to be impoverished. On the other hand, the proximity of an army causes prices to go up, and high prices causes the people's substance to be drained away. When the substance is drained away, the peasantry will be affected by heavy extractions. With this loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of the people will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of their income will be dissipated. While government expenses for broken chariots, worn-out horses, breastplates and helmets, bows and arrows, spears and shields, protective mantles, draught oxen, and heavy wagons will amount to 4/10 of its total revenue. Hence, a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. One cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own, and likewise a single pincel of his provender is equivalent to 20 from one's own store. Now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger. That may be the advantage from defeating the enemy. They must have their rewards. One pikal weighs exactly, or approximately, 133 pounds. Therefore, in chariot fighting, where 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our own flags should be substituted for those of the enemy, and those chariots mingled and used in conjunction with ours. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. This is called using the conquered foe to augment one's own strength. In war, then, let your great object be victory, not lengthy campaigns. Thus, it may be known that the leader of armies is the arbiter of people's fate, the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. Chapter 3. Attack by Stratagem. Sun Tzu said, "In a practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not so good. So too, it is better to recapture the enemy army entirely than to destroy it. To capture a regiment, a detachment, or a company entire than to destroy them. Hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." Thus, the highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy forces. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. And the worst policy of all is to besiege walled cities. The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can possibly be avoided. The preparations of mantlets, moving shelters, and various implements of war will take up 3 whole months, and the piling up of mounds over against the wall will take 3 more months. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to an assault like swarming ants, with the result that 1/3 of his men are slain, while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. Therefore, the skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. With his forces intact, he will dissipate the mastery of the empire. And thus, without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. It is the rule in war. If our forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, to surround him. If it is 5 to 1, to attack him. If twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2. If equally matched, we can offer battle. If slightly inferior in numbers, we can avoid the enemy. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. Hence, there is an obstinate fight may be made by the small force. In the end, it must be captured by the larger force. Now the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state will be weak. There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune upon his army. 1. By commanding the army to advance or retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. By attempting to govern an army in the same way he administers a kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions in which obtain in an army. This causes restlessness in the soldiers' minds. 3. By employing the officers of his armies without discrimination, through ignorance of the military principle of adaptation to circumstances. This shakes the confidence of the soldiers. But when the army is restless and distrustful, trouble is sure to come from the other feudal princes. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away. Thus, we may now know there are 5 essential victories. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. He will win who knows how to win both in superior and superior forces. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. He will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. He will win who has military capacity and is not inferred by the sovereign. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Chapter 4. Tactical Dispositions. Sun Tzu said, the good fighters of an old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat, and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the army. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Thus, the good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat, but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. Hence the saying, one may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Security against defeat implies defensive tactics. Ability to defend the enemy means taking the offensive. Standing on the defensive indicates insufficient strength, attacking a subordinate of strength. A general who is skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. Thus, on one hand, we have the ability to protect ourselves, on the other, a victory that is complete. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not the acumen of excellence. Neither is the acumen of excellence if you fight and conquer, and the whole empire says, well done. To lift an autumn hair is no sign of great strength. To see the sun and moon is no sign of sharp sight. To hear a noise of thunder is no sign of quick ear. What the ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Hence his victories bring him neither reputation for wisdom, nor credit for courage. He wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of the victory, for it means conquering the enemy that is already defeated. Hence the skillful fighter puts himself in a position which makes impossible defeat, and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. Thus it is, when in war, the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat his first fights, and afterwards looks for victory. The consummate leader cultivates the moral law. He strictly adheres to his method and discipline. Thus, it is in his power to control success. In respect of military method, we have, firstly, measurement, secondly, estimation of quality, thirdly, calculation, fourthly, balancing of chances, fifthly, victory. Measurement owes its existence to earth, estimation of quality to measurement, calculation to estimation of quality, balancing of chances to calculation, and victory to balancing of chances. A victorious army opposed to a rooted one is as a pound's weight placed in a scale against a single grain. An onrush of conquering force is like the bursting of pent-up waters into a chasm 1,000 fathoms deep. Chapter 5. Energy. Sun Tzu said, the control of a large force is the same principle as the control of a few men. It is merely a question of dividing up their numbers. Fighting with a large army under your command is no wise different from fighting with a small one. It is merely a question of instituting signs and signals. To ensure your whole host may withstand the brunt of the enemy's attack and remain unshaken, this is effected by maneuvers direct and indirect. That is, the impact of your army may be like a grindstone dashed against an egg. This is effected by the science of weak points and strong. In all fighting, a direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed in order to secure victory. Indirect tactics efficiently applied are inexhaustible as earth and heaven, unending as the flow of rivers and streams. Like the sun and moon, they end but begin anew. Like the 4 seasons, they pass away to return once more. They are not more than 5 musical notes, yet the combinations of these 5 give rise to more melodies than one can ever be heard. There are not more than 5 primary colors: blue, yellow, red, white, and black. Yet in combination they produce more hues than can ever be seen. There are not more than 5 cardinal tastes: sour, acrid, salt, sweet, bitter. Yet combinations of them yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. In battle, there are more than 2 methods of attack: the direct and indirect. Yet these two in combination give rise to an endless series of maneuvers. The direct and indirect lead on to each other in turn. It's like moving in a circle. You can never come to an end. Who can exhaust the possibilities of their combination? The onset of its troops is like a rush of torrent, which will even roll stones along its course. The quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Therefore, the good fighter will be terrible in his onset and prompt in his decision. Energy may be likened to the bending of a crossbow, decision to releasing of a trigger. Amid the turmoil and tumult of a battle, there may be seeming disorder, and yet no real disorder at all. Amid confusion and chaos, your array may be without head or tail, yet it may be proof against defeat. Simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulated weakness postulates strength. Hiding order beneath the cloak of disorder is simply a question of subdivision. Concealing courage under a show of timely presurface, a fund of latent energy. Masking strength with weakness is to be effected by tactical dispositions. Thus, one who is skillful at keeping the enemy on the move maintains deceitful appearances, according to which the enemy will act. He sacrifices something, that the enemy may snare at it. By holding up baits, he keeps himself on the march. Then, with the body of picked men, he lies and waits for him. The clever combatant looks to effect of combined energy, and does not require too much from individuals. Hence his ability to pick out the right men and utilize combined energy. When he utilizes combined energy, his fighting men become, as it were, like unto rolling logs of stones. For it is the nature of a log or a stone to remain motionless on level ground, and to move when it is on a slope, if four-cornered, to come to a standstill, if round-shaped, to go rolling down. Thus, the energy developed by good fighting men is the momentum of a round stone rolled down a mountain, thousands of feet in height. So much on the subject of energy. Chapter 6. Weak Points and Strong. Sun Tzu said, "Whoever is the first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to the battle will arrive exhausted." Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. By holding advantages on him, he can cause the enemy to approach on his own accord, or, by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. If the enemy is taking his ease, he can harass him. If well supplied with food, he can starve him out. If quietly encamped, he can force him to move. Appear at points where the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. You can make sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. Hence, that general is skillful in the attack whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skillful in defense whose opponent does not know what to attack. O divine art of subtlety and secrecy, though you we learn to be invisible, through you inaudible, and hence we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. You may advance in absolute irresistible, if you make for the enemy's weak points. You may retire, and be safe from pursuit in your movements, and more rapid than those of the enemy. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement, even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart in a deep ditch. And we need to do is attack some other place that he will be obligated to relieve. If we do not wish to fight, we can prevent the enemy from engaging us through the lines of our encampment by merely traced out on the ground. All we need to do is to throw something odd and unaccountable in his way. By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep ourselves and our forces concentrated, while the enemy must be divided. We can form a single united body, while the enemy must split up into factions. Hence, there will be whole pitted up against separate parts of a whole, which means that we shall be many to the enemy's few. And if we are able to thus to attack an inferior force with a superior one, our opponents will be in dire straits. The point where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points, and his forces being thus distributed in many directions, the numbers of which we have to face at any given point will be promptly few. For this the enemy strengthens his van, he will weaken his rear. When he strengthens his rear, he weakens his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will be everywhere be weak. Numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against possible attacks. Numerical strength from compelling our adversary to make these preparations against us. Knowing the place and the time of great battle, we may concentrate from the greatest distance in order to fight. But if neither time nor place to be known, then the left wing will be impotent to the succor of the right, the right equally impotent to the succor of the left, the van unable to relieve the rear, or the rear to support the van. How much more if the furthest portions of the army are anything under 100 li apart, and even the nearest are separated by several li. Though according to my estimate the soldiers of Ye exceeded our own in number, that shall advance them nothing in the numbers of victory. I say that victory can be achieved. If the enemy be stronger in numbers, we may prevent him from fighting. Scheme so as to discover his plans and the likelihood of their success. Ruse him, and learn the principle of his activity or inactivity. Force him to reveal himself, as so to find out his vulnerable points. Carefully compare the opposing army with your own, so that you may know where strength is superburnt and where it is deficient. By making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of subtlest spies, from the mechanizations of the wisest brains. How victory may be produced for them out of the enemy's own tactics, that is what the multitude cannot comprehend. All men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but when none of these is the strategy of which victory is evolved, do not repeat the tactics of which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by infinite variety of circumstances. Military tactics are like unto water, for water in natural course runs away from high places and hastens downwards. So in war, the way to avoid what is strong, and to strike at what is weak. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so is warfare. There is no constant conditions. He who can modify his tactics in relations to his opponent, and therefore succeed in winning, may be called a heaven-born captain. The 5 elements, water, fire, wood, metal, earth, are not equally predominant. The 4 seasons make way for each other in the turn. There are short days and long. The moons have its periods of waning and waxing. I am going to end it off here because I am starting to fall asleep for some reason. Thank you all for listening, and I will finish the book next time. I hope you all have a great day, and talk to you later. Hope you all are doing amazing, and if you guys want to support me, I do have a Ko-Fi. I will add it at the end of this, and I hope you all have an amazing day, night, or evening. Bye-bye.